As we glance back to simpler times, easier times, and to our fondest memories, we think back to our school, the first Western High School. Students today would be surprised to find out the history of how we came to be Western High School, and just exactly what it means to be a Western Indian.
The history of the school began back in the days of 1916, when such leaders as the late V. L. McCoy and H. B. Scouten, along with their other outstanding citizens, saw the need for a high school in this section of the county. These people were instrumental in establishing the two-year school at Latham in the old Methodist church, and later on the second floor of the Red Men Lodge Hall. Among the early teachers in this two-year system were C. W. Penn, J. Harvey McCoy, the late Neely Farmer Penn, and H. B. Scouten. Courses offered were English, algebra, history, general science, agriculture, and physical education. The physical education program usually consisted of baseball and volleyball in good weather, and during the winter months was generally forgotten about. This two-year program was most essential to the students who yearned for more advanced knowledge and in order to graduate had to attend another school in the county or adjoining counties for their junior and senior year.
As the population increased, the community felt the need for more educational faculties for their children. In 1929, a town meeting was held and a bond issue was discussed for the purpose of bringing the issue before the citizens of the township. At the school board meeting, a motion to put a levy before the voters was made. The motion passed and the levy was voted on at the November election. The levy passed and would raise $18,000.
The Chrisman property, 5½ acres along State Route 124, was purchased for $700. The building was completed in the spring of 1931, and classes started in that fall. There were 8 classrooms, a science room, and a furnace room. There was no electricity until April of 1932, no gymnasium, no cafeteria, and no running water. Students from grade schools Lowman, Byington, Laparelle, Latham, Grassy Fork, and Drybone were now bused to their new school.
The school was to be known as Mifflin Township School.
Alfred Rice and Ruby Holton, who would later become Mr. and Mrs. Rice, were the first students to walk into the new Western High School in 1931.
In November 1933, a telephone was installed at the high school.
The Depression years were very hard times for people in the rural communities. Everyone in the family had to contribute just to survive. Many children dropped out of school to help their parents support the family.
In 1951, the Methodist Church building was converted into a home by Wendell Rusa. This building was bought later that year by Harold Scouten and his wife Virginia. On various occasions, this building was used for events such as high school graduation.
Lynn Daniels started driving the school bus in 1938. It was bought new during the same year and driven by Lynn until the spring of 1946. His route was from Rainbow Trail down Morgan's Fork to Morgantown School. After letting off grade school kids here and picking up high school kids brought in by other drivers, he drove on to Latham. He once took a load of kids to the Cincinnati Zoo in this same bus. Bus drivers who used their personal cars to haul students were referred to as feeder drivers and were paid accordingly.
In 1939, the commencement ceremonies were held in the new gymnasium. 1940 was the first year that basketball was played in the new gym. 1943 was the first year that a person was paid for coaching. Robert Wilson was called to service in World War II, forcing him to leave his position as principal and basketball coach.
The school's cafeteria was opened in January 1943. The building originally housed 3rd and 4th grades before being converted into a cafeteria. Supplies such as chicken, milk, and potatoes were bought locally.
The graduating class of 1944 had 17 students. By comparison, 50 years later, the graduating class of 1994 had a class size of 56 students. In the month of January in the same year, the electric bill was $36.20. Substitute teachers received $4.50 a day. In November of 1943, the telephone bill was $4.15.
1945 was the first year for the yearbook and for senior pictures.
1958 was the first year that students were transferred to the trade school. In 1968, the Western High School boys basketball team made it to the Final Four.
1970 marks the year that the first alumni banquet was held.
Girls basketball was ordered to stop playing in 1939 and did not return until 1976.
Some Western High School legends will always be remembered in our hearts and minds.
Teachers, I remember Miss Cool came to me. She was so disappointed in me when she found out that I wasn't electing to go to college. And it was like, nobody else had ever said that to me. Nobody really cared, you know. But it was, now, mind you, there was discipline. And, you know, we knew what we were allowed to do and what we weren't allowed to do. But we also felt like they really cared. The teachers really cared, and it was about students.
You had the discipline, but you also had
Right.
the caring along with it.
Well, it's a tie. Cale Smith and Beatrice Bates. Maybe at the time that I graduated, I might not have answered those two as my favorites, but looking back, they were hugely influential, and what they taught me, I still hold on to. And they both taught. She taught English, he taught math. Foundations for all the jobs I've had.
Right, exactly. Who were the most influential people in your years at Western High School? This can be anyone, not just a teacher.
Well, I would stay with those two as part of them, but Hecky Thompson, Henderson Thompson, he was our coach, our superintendent. And again, at the time I didn't appreciate it because I was young, but looking back, we lost him early, but looking back, he was really influential because he wasn't always friendly with you, but he was always honest with you, and he was firm, and he had a reason for what he did. So I would say Beatrice and Cale and Henderson Thompson were mine.
I hate to play favorites, but several come to mind when I think of my favorite teachers. I can genuinely say that I like them all, but Geneva Kepler, she was my first grade teacher and also my preschool teacher. Rosemary Cool, Cale Smith, Sandra Cooper, and Beatrice Bates. Those 5 individuals really stand out in my mind when I think back of, they treated everyone the same, whether you were the smartest or maybe had a little problem in the class, whether you were middle class or lower class. They seemed to treat everyone fairly and just really good educators and people.
Who were the most influential people in your years at Western?
And most influential, Gabby Smith, who is now my brother-in-law. Wonderful principal, motivator, such a great motivator. Gabby is. I just have to say Gabby.
And how did these people help shape who you are today?
Again, at Western, everyone did know everyone. We were a smaller school. These individuals taught us to respect and care for others, regardless of if I am a senior and you're a freshman, I'm going to respect you. I can say academically, of course they educated me, but I think these individuals that I've spoken of they just taught us to respect, to be nice, just be nice.
Be good people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no doubt in my mind. It would be Sam Smith. Sam Smith, when I got to the 9th grade, was my history teacher. And undoubtedly the smartest man that I ever knew in history. He had like 2 doctorate degrees. And he could take a battle out of the Revolutionary War and make you feel like the bombs was dropping around you. He was such a great speaker. And I've heard him speak at different occasions, wherever. And he was just a fabulous man to know. And, always in my life, he would be my favorite teacher.
Miss Cool.
Yeah, I'd have to say Miss Cool too.
I didn't really have many of her classes until my junior year, but she was my favorite.
Yeah, I always enjoyed her classes.
Why? What was it about her?
Well, I think one thing, I mean, they had her as a teacher, but I was a new teacher coming out of college into teaching, and she took me under her wing and taught me everything. I'd never been Corning before, and she taught me Corning, which I was glad to learn that experience. And I mean, she had those dinners for us. She had the kids fix us that Thanksgiving dinner forever. If anyone had a fire or a death in the family, she had a little drawer, and they called it her slush fund. And they can't arrest her now because she's gone. But she would pay for things for people. All that money went back to the Western community.
She knew more what was happening in the community than just about anybody.
Yes.
If
She
there
was
was a
always-
need, she knew about it.
She was always there to help.
Was she married? Did
No.
she have
No,
a family?
there was.
She had sisters. and
So this was
brothers.
her family.
Yeah.
That was her
Yeah.
family.
Well, she was very family oriented, even among her own family members and relatives. But yeah, she was.
And she got softball started, and and the
Right.
golf team
Right.
started, and of course, you know, for years and years, she done the fruit baskets for the
Right.
older people in the community.
We ate in the home ec room, and Mrs. Cooper always kept roadkill in the refrigerator. So you go to
She
get
really
your
did.
lunch, and you might have a dead animal wrapped up, and you didn't want to
For
grab
her
the wrong
science
thing,
class.
Right.
so they could dissect.
Now this goes back farther than Miss Cole. Another teacher stands out to me is
I know.
Miss Wilson.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you know, I thought, oh my gosh, I had her for shorthand and typing, and everybody, you know, horror stories about her and everything. But you know, I enjoyed her class, and I knew my typing and shorthand when I left there. I mean, she taught you, but I enjoyed it.
But those influences in my life were had such a tremendous impact on me, because I knew everything they did, everything they both did, was for one reason, because they thought it was the best thing for Western High School, and every kid meant the world to them. From the biggest heathen in the school to the best kid in the school, it didn't make any difference. Verdi cared just the same about you, and so did Mr. Smith. And those are the things that I remember, and I have tried to do that as a teacher, as a principal. I may have failed miserably, but I have tried, and I've always remembered that if you can't love or at least like the unlikable, the kids that most people will have a hard time liking, if I can't bring myself to find something good in that kid, then I need to find a new job. And I learned that from Gabby and Verdi. You know, it didn't matter if the kid was the poorest, dirtiest kid in the school, it didn't make any difference. They got treated the same. If you were supposed to be in trouble, then you were in trouble. And they made no apologies about it. But at the end of the day, you always knew they cared more about Western High School and the kids in it than anything else. And that's something that has stuck with me, you know, for all these years. And I imagine I don't expect that to ever change.
With all the time, effort, dedication, concern, and caring that has been put into the making of Western High School, there are some common themes that resonate within the people associated with Western.
Western High School is special because of the close-knit family that you become once was at Western. Since it was such a small school, everybody knew everybody, and I think that's what made it so special.
Mm-hmm.
My funniest memory is when I was a senior, someone put a dead cat in the library over Christmas break. And it was put in there. It was not me. I was not in on it. But someone did, and that person has remained nameless for all these years and will. But that was our funniest memory when we came back to school, and the smell and the rumors and the talk. And our principal at the time, Denny Chapman, he questioned a few of the ones that he suspected probably were in on it, but he never did question the guilty person. So that was always funny. We've laughed about that for the last 30 years, just how hilarious that was. So.
For me, it was the size. A smaller school, everyone knew everyone. When we walked the halls, we could say hello to anyone because we knew everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And we were friendly, we bonded. It was just a nice environment, good atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
The first memory would be the school bus. I was at the beginning of the route. I was one of the first kids to get on the bus. Myself and Mary Ann Daniels Lambert. Now, we were the first ones on the bus. We always tried to get the hump. I guess it's the heater, but we wanted that. Yeah, that was a great place to sit, wasn't it?
Yes.
So the school bus and that smell on that school bus, it's distinctive, isn't it?
You never forget.
Never forget it. Again, I like Western High School. I love it. We were close.
Mm-hmm.
My kids graduated from a larger school, and they don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
They'll graduate with people they don't know. I've never seen that person before.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have that. We
Exactly.
graduated 50-some people, and we knew each other.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that made Western High School special to me was the fact of the closeness of the society we grew up in. Everyone knew everyone. Our teachers knew our parents knew our teachers, and it seemed like they all had one objective, is to get the best education we could for their student, and we all worked together. And I think that was great. I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. I loved the rural school type system, and it was a small school.
What was your best memory?
I think the best memory was we started out with great teachers, with Miss Dodson, Miss Bailey, Miss Satterfield, Mr. Frost. They had the ability to, we didn't really realize it then, but later on in life, they gave us something that you can't get now in schools. They gave us principles of what our country stood for, and we all had to memorize all this stuff about the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, which we did every day, and what our forefathers stood for, and we started learning that in the first and second, third grade, and it was just great.
My funniest memory, and I had a lot of them, but my funniest memory would have to be my freshman year when Brent Bowles and I were at home ec, and Miss Cool had finally given in. She had made us quit sewing. She had finally allowed us to stop sewing and doing all that kind of stuff that we never wanted to do to start with. So we moved into the cooking part of home ec 1, and she's what we wanted to make, and Brent and I decided to make Chef Orday pizza. So we have the pizza in the oven cooking. The buzzer goes off. We're doing what we're supposed to be doing. The buzzer goes off. Brent opens up the oven, reaches in the oven with a hand towel to get the pizza out of the oven. The little fringy things on the hand towel hit the burner, catch on fire. So Brent has a burning towel in his hand, and Miss Cool hears us holler. So she runs over as Brent's trying to beat the fire out of the towel. Miss Cool is beating on both of us with a wooden spoon. So she continued to beat on us until we got the fire convoked, but then she gives a few extra licks just for good measure after that. But that would go back as my funniest. It was scary for a little while, and it was painful for a little while, but looking back, it probably was the funniest thing that happened that didn't turn out really bad. I remember that as being the central thing about Western High School was, even though there were differences and people had disagreements, everybody could pull together on a Friday night in that old hot gym come together and put all the differences aside and watch a basketball game. Win by 20, lose by 20. I won't say it didn't matter, but we were still there, whether you liked the coach, whether you didn't like the coach, whether we were good or bad, everyone still came together on those nights to support one thing, and that was Western basketball. And so that's always stuck with me as being in this job. People sometimes don't understand how important sports are, how important the camaraderie is. And in a school like ours, where there's no football and there's no actual really big town, it is all about the school. And so I learned that at a young age. It's all about the school. And so that would be the first thing I think of, is how close-knit people come when it comes to defending your school, when it comes to doing the best thing for the school. That overrides everything else, or at least it should.
Perhaps the true meaning of what it means to be a Western Indian cannot be summed up in just a few simple words, but then again, perhaps it can. Our alma mater means far more than brick and mortar. It means the spirit and ideals and traditions that have animated and will continue to animate its students. The building may change, but the spirit of our alma mater will command our loyalty and respect always.